Thanks for inviting me along today to be a part of New School of
Oh,
Recruitment.
pleasure.
What are we going to be talking about today?
So today's all going to be talking around the purpose, or what is the purpose of work.
Ooh,
so
nice.
yeah,
Nice and juicy.
really good topic, really good
Yeah.
topic. So I think first things first is obviously we want to make sure that people know, I know who you are, but
Yeah.
for those that don't and have been living under a rock, can you please introduce yourself and let the people know?
Yeah, well, I'm Ruby. I'm currently the founder of two businesses, Tribe 9 and also the Careers Emporium. And all of this came from the fact that I have had years and years of corporate recruiting experience, and I kind of got to that purpose point,
Right.
you know, where I'm like, why am I doing this? Why am I recruiting these roles constantly for businesses that I kind of sort of believe in, but not quite sure? So yeah, hence I launched two businesses, and now I get to work with individuals on a career point of view, but I also get to partner with startup founders and help them build their tribes. And I love it because I get to pick founders that I really enjoy working with and businesses that I believe in, and I get to find people for them to help them achieve their goals. So
That's really awesome.
it's the best.
Awesome. And we have here with us Brooklyn, our Chief Happiness Officer. He's actually just looking for a spot to do his business at the moment.
He'll be extra happy after that.
Yeah,
won't he?
exactly.
Welcome to the New School of Recruitment. I'm Brooklyn. Nice to meet you.
Why do you come to work each day?
It's to live, right? It's I think for me personally, like I spent so many years going to work because it was the thing to do, right? Like I finished uni and my parents are like crazy Asians, and they're just like, no, you have to go to work and you have to go climb that ladder. And for me, it was basically I lived to work.
Yeah.
And I spent probably about 10 years trying to find that purpose, trying to find, I went to different organizations at different roles, different things, traveled the world and thought maybe I could, if I went to a different location, it would give me more sense of purpose, et cetera, but just couldn't really quite figure it out. Whereas now it's the reason why I go to work, or for me, it's really, I work so I can live, so I can live a life that I've always dreamt of.
Yes, yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I think that I can absolutely agree with that. It really resonates with me. Like I find I have really changed the way that I work in the last 18 months or so. I've definitely moved more so away from the traditional employment models into employing myself and finding opportunities for myself. So work for me is really an extension of my passion and what I get energy from each day. And I also had Asian parents who at the time said to me, working is a way to have nice things and to have security. But as we know in this day and age, things have changed so much. You mentioned that you were on this path of consciousness or trying to find purpose over the last 10 years. I don't think I actually clued into that consciousness bit until maybe the last 3 years or so.
Right.
When did you realize that moment where it's like, hang on, why are we actually working, or why are we doing what we're doing each day?
Yeah, for me, it was a really pivotal point where basically I was working crazy amounts. So I ran this business. I was working full time as well outside. So I basically woke up, went to work, then worked on my other business, then went to sleep.
Yeah.
And during that period, I gained heaps of weight, and I basically became lived a really unhealthy lifestyle. And then I decided I needed to make a change, and literally just went to the gym. And I hate lifting weights. I find it very repetitive.
Yeah.
So I went and just said, what else can I do? And first thing first, I went into kickboxing, kind of with a friend. It worked out all right, but then during that period, a friend, now a friend, but a guy that I was talking to, he's like, oh, try jiu-jitsu, try this thing out. So I was like, screw it, I'll give it a go. Went on the mats and started training jiu-jitsu. And I just fell in love with getting on the mat and this
Wrestling with other men.
yeah, pretty much, right? Yeah, so I fell in love with this art, and it became this thing where I started to realize what I was doing every day wasn't this. It didn't give me the same love, or didn't give me the same feeling. And there was a period of time where I remember my coach at the time said, "All right, hey, I've got this crew of people that need some training or teaching." So I started volunteering twice a week to just teach these people, and they were different ages, some young, some older, just the fundamentals of jiu-jitsu. And I remember I was working at this company, and I'd finish work, and I'd be rushing in traffic, sitting in traffic to get to this, all the way to the other side of town to go and teach these guys.
Yeah.
And I'd be sitting in the car, and like, I was just so excited to go. And I remember one day I was sitting in the car, and there was just so much traffic, all these people around me in suits, and I just was like, I'm so frustrated at work, which is what pays me, yet the thing that I do that is volunteering and is completely free and like doesn't give me like any monetary value was what was the most happiest thing for me at the time.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized that like what I was doing was completely wrong.
Yes.
And what I needed to do was find, how do I make that feeling that I had that 1 hour twice a week, how do I turn that into every single hour of the working day, right? And that's when I went on this mission to basically live a life that I wanted to live, you know?
Yeah. I'm just going to box in us as like, back in the recruiter world.
Yeah.
And one thing I really noticed about our industry, well, back then anyway, and I'm talking maybe like 10 years ago.
Sure.
I came from a large recruitment agency as well.
Sure.
That was my first step into recruitment.
Sure.
And everything around like the culture and the expectations that people had of you was around working hard. You had to be there at 8 a.m. and no later, otherwise like you're dead to the management team.
Yeah.
And if you left any time before 6 p.m, like you would be perceived as not working hard.
Yeah.
And obviously everything was tracked so closely with metrics and goals, and it, like reflecting back on that, it felt so constraining, didn't it? Like that was our definition of hard work, and that was our definition of like, we came to work between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. to do this every single day.
Yeah.
And it just drove me personally crazy. I just couldn't imagine doing this for the rest of my life.
Well, it's scary, right? Because a lot of people do that every day. A lot of people like spend literally their whole life doing that. But and you can't necessarily blame them, because remember, like, if I look back at my parents, they grew up, are you familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Yeah.
And so when they migrated over here, their purpose of what a job is wasn't about satisfaction or happiness or whatever. It was literally, we need to get food on the table, we need to put a roof over our head, and we need to build, right?
Yeah.
And so for them, it was whatever's going to happen or whatever's going to get us that is going to be that. My mum worked in a sock factory. I think I was literally 2 weeks before I was born. She was still there working in the sock factory, and my dad basically was just doing whatever he could, and they worked, and that's all they know, So for them, this whole new sort of, I want to work because of happiness and stuff like that, it's completely different. Whereas for me personally, I'm born into a generation where food is on the table,
We're so lucky.
And a roof is over my head, I've got a bed to sleep at night. So it's now I'm at the next stage where it's like, I'm searching for that what's the conscious feelings or the conscious satisfactions and the conscious safety nets, rather than just what is physically in front of me.
Yeah.
And I think obviously in the world that we live in now, with technology, with literally anything and everything, like being or the fear of losing a job or the fear of not working is no longer such a big fear, for me anyways.
Yeah.
I mean, you were recently in Bali and working over there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a perfect epitome of it, right? Like, tell me
the
about
best.
that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was the best. So part of my all-time like bucket list items is to actually digital nomad around the world. And I'm sure a lot of people have heard of or read this like crazy notion of Tim Ferriss's 4-hour work week. I want to be able to do that in a less extreme version of it. But just to be able to, I've got 2 boys, my husband and I co-found a business together. So we've got a lot of freedom and flexibility around how we can just pick up our business and go.
Sure.
And we both work very heavily in it as well. So part of going to Bali, one of the co-working international hubs of, of the world, was just a bit of an experiment to see
Right.
what it was like to not only digital nomad it, but do it with kids, run a business, 2 businesses, and work actively with clients. And you and I hopped on a call together, and it was a couple of hours difference, but it was just like you were here and I was in the CBD. There's no difference at all.
And I mean, you mentioned it's the startup. Well, I mean, like a co-work.
Yeah, one of the startup capitals of the world, really.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, so the people that I was mingling with over there, they were all surfers, of course, or just yogis.
Yeah.
They spent all day like meditating, doing yoga, like the fittest people ever. But then when you ask them, like, how do you sustain the lifestyle that you do? All of them were online entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs running businesses in other countries, and they just had an arm of what they did in Bali because it was obviously much more economic for them.
Yeah.
But like a couple of founders I spoke to, they just said, look, we just love surfing. The surf's really great here this time of year, so we're going to be basing out of here for 3 months. And, that's incredible. And it's just speaking to these people made it so much more of a reality. And, even if we cast our minds to like 5 or 6 years ago, you think, only people who start an online business can do that.
Correct.
But more and more businesses, like physical businesses, are able to have their people working remotely. And there's some incredible examples out there. I'll call out Envato, that, they've got
They've got an amazing policy, yeah.
for remote workers.
Yeah.
You can be anywhere in the world
Correct.
and work at Envato.
Yeah.
Hello, that's incredible. And that's just one small example of, what employers are now doing.
So what do you reckon tech is obviously a huge enabler of this, right? Like,
Yes.
obviously we took a call and it wouldn't have happened 10 years ago. Internet was still, it just come out of dial-up, I think. But it was still ADSL 128, I want to say, or 256, very slow anyways.
Just that noise is ringing through my head now.
Yep. Skype was still very intermittent, you don't
so
have WhatsApp just
patchy.
going bang on your phone.
Yeah.
So 10 years ago, it was much harder to run an international or be a digital nomad, right?
Yeah.
But now, obviously, technology allows us to kind of be connected anywhere. My sister's in China at the moment, and literally I just speak to her every day, and it's just like that. My mum speaks to her sisters over in China, and it's like they're in the same country now. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Where do you think, with the way that technology is going, where do you think it will help shape how people are connected or how people work?
Okay. Yeah. So
Or
let's
their
talk about
purpose.
it. Yeah. Okay. So I'll address the purpose one, but let's talk about it as well from a hiring perspective.
Sure. Okay.
So this year alone, I've hired people from, and I've interviewed them whilst I was in Melbourne and they were elsewhere. So, and it's quite a rigorous hiring process in tech,
Sure.
especially if you're a software engineer,
Sure.
for example, many steps involved.
Sure.
So I've interviewed people over in New Zealand, in the States, in Africa, where the reception was really dodgy, but we did it anyway. And especially over in New York, the time differences are all over the place. But, it was just such a easy thing to do as well. So whoever it was that we ended up hiring whilst they were over there, by the time they flew back to Melbourne or they relocated to Melbourne, they had a job to walk into. So no longer did they have to physically be here. Did I have to shake their hand physically to be like, I trust you because I can touch you. It was more just, I trust you because we've formed an online relationship almost, which is nuts, right? But from a purpose point of view, I really do feel that technology enables us to work not just on what we love doing, but in environments and places that get the most from us.
Yeah.
So if that's just from your couch at home with Oprah on, then do it, or if it's from the cafe, which I actually recently read this article about how working from a cafe creates much more productivity than working from an office because you don't get the interruptions and you just get your zen, you get your ritual. But if it's working from a cafe.
And they feed you that cafe coffee that is just amazing stimulants.
Addictive. What's your favourite cafe in Melbourne?
There's one around the corner called Sibi. I don't know if it's the Japanese cafe.
Yeah.
So, and they make, I really, they were already making really good coffee, and then I was like, I'm off the coffee, what do I do? But they make a really good honey lemon ginger tea
just
that's
for
homemade.
you?
It's perfect. What about you?
Patricia's.
Hugo's gonna love you. Yeah.
Patricia's, that I will line up for 20 minutes for a freaking $4.80 cup of coffee.
So
Like,
we got their
nuts,
beans, right? We just went and we were just like, this is actually the lines. It's like
Yeah.
lining up to go to a club.
Yeah.
And
a coffee
so we just
club.
got their beans and just said we're just gonna make our own. But yeah, Patricia's is
Yeah.
out of control.
Speaking of which, do you know how many interviews I've done out of Patricia's?
But it's awkward in there. How do you?
You just pull up a crate, like one of those milk crates,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
just sit in the Melbourne laneways, and I just like have a
See,
coffee.
I did it the wrong way, right?
You did it inside?
I did it. Yeah, I remember because I used to
like,
work
"Hi,
around the corner there.
Tony!"
Yeah,
Yeah.
and every morning we'd go to Patricia's or one of the. There's another one, Code Black, around the corner. So we're
Yeah.
just depending on if we wanted to line up. And I remember I did this one interview and we were by the window bench, and
No.
I had a new starter with me as well, and I was like, "You can interview anywhere, right? It's fine." And she was standing to my side, and then the candidate was in front of me, and I was just on the bench, like, yep, and it was just the most
So awkward.
awkward dynamic, right? Where we were just talking, and she actually said, "Oh, we're interviewing here," you know, and halfway through, I just said, "All right, you know what? Let's go somewhere else. This is not working."
Yeah, so I do the warm up in the line. So
Right.
let's say it's like a 10-minute.
Oh, you've got it down pat. You've
I
got
got
it
it down
formula-
pat.
Yeah.
Okay. Warm up in the line. How you doing? What do you love doing? Blah blah blah. We get our coffees, and the people there know me. I've literally got a tab there. They're like, "Oh, just the usual. What will you have?" And then we just grab the coffee crates if it's a nice day. Sit out in the laneway, and we just have a good old chat. No laptops, no notepads. It's just me and them one-on-one, getting to know what they're all about. Going back to purpose. There is no better way to understand someone's actual purpose and passion than just over a really like casual coffee, tea or drink.
Very good.
But I will say this, I've met a lot of startup founders who have interviewed and hired over one beer or one coffee, and that is just a huge no-no. And I've had many founders actually say to me, you know, after the fact that, "Oh shit, I think we've really stuffed up. We probably should have had a more robust interviewing or hiring process." And I'm like, "Okay, so what did it look like?" "Oh yeah, we just hired over a beer." I'm like, "Oh my God, this is why."
Yeah.
So it's really great from a purpose, culture fit perspective, but anything technical and anything that you're wanting to dive a little bit deeper in, I just think it's still better off in an office environment where
Yeah.
you can really have some proper one-on-one time.
Yeah. So recently, I was at this conference called the HR Tech, and I was listening to this guy, Josh Bersin, talk around the future of work, future of HR, and how technology plays into the whole place, and found it quite fascinating. And there was a few comments he was saying, like, basically, as a recruitment leader or a HR leader, if you're not experimenting with technology right now,
Yeah.
then you're basically being left behind, because what we talked about around purpose and just enablement or empowerment through technology, it's happening right now. So with things like AI, with things like machine learning, with things with, you know, I'm sure you as a head of talent, and you know, doing what you do, you must have a tech stack that's, you know, 10 deep. What do you see as the future of work as far as innovation, tech? What do you think is going to really drive, you know, or help us from a day-to-day point of view?
Sure. It's interesting and totally fascinating to me, because as I've immersed myself in this topic, I'm hearing the pros and the cons and how AI is going to take over all of our jobs, and how we've got this really miserable outlook on, you know, the employment market. But I think I personally take on quite a more positive view on it. AI in particular, because, you know, you're right, being a head of talent, I do get approached a lot by HR tech startups to trial their products, to give it a go, to see how it actually plays out in real time, some of which is still in testing as well, which is really awesome. But what I think I'm finding in terms of like tech innovation in HR that's helping us in head of talent or even in a hiring position is that candidate experience. And I think a lot of it is almost twofold. So one is that as a hirer, I can find someone from, you know, less than under a minute, a pre-qualified candidate. We
There you go. You heard it first.
But also, it's things like, you know, being able to match someone's personality to the job or to the culture. Sure, there's a lot of pre-work involved, but once that's done, there's a lot of predictive work that can be done in the background. Also, things like chatbots are really great, especially running a lean, hiring team.
Sure.
The future of WorkWise for me, it enables me to step away from a lot of the administrative parts of my role and get to know more of the people and more of the heart aspect to what we're actually looking for. So it's things like scheduling interviews, it's things like, getting them in front of the right people and doing tests and all of that stuff, getting feedback back to candidates as well in a really timely way. There are amazing chatbots out there to help us along that journey, or at least keep candidates involved.
Sure.
But we're seeing the future unfolding now. What that's going to look like in 10 years, I really wish I could, predict what it's going to look like, especially for people in my role.
Yeah.
Recruiting for startups.
Well, people are saying that, a lot of people are scared, right? Because automation and disruption comes in and takes out a whole industry. We get it quite a bit where I actually get a lot of messages on LinkedIn, and they're nice ones. Basically, people saying they want to join our company, but the reason why they want to join is because they can see how we're going to basically take their job. And for me, it's like we're not trying to actually take their job. We're trying to enable them, because, you don't get into recruitment to do admin. You get into recruitment to do the most amazing recruitment and find the unicorns out there,
yes.
right? Whereas so much of your time would be bogged down in admin, right?
Yeah.
So how do you find tools or technologies or innovations that can automate or they atomize your parts of your role so that you can focus on the high value impact work and I guess outsource
That's right.
the rest, right? Yeah. Internally, we actually call it unleashing your talent, because it's all about you have this talent that doesn't come out, right?
Yeah.
How do you find, what do you think the future of work and the purpose of work looks like in the future, given that these sort of technologies are here and already people are starting to leverage this now?
I think strategy in particular is going to be in its purest form in action. So many people that are in growth roles, in strategy roles, they do get bogged down in the operational. So it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds. But one question that kind of flies around in my mind is all of us started in recruitment in an admin function of some kind. Support roles are often seen as like that entry-level step. If AI and automation are taking that away, then entry-level essentially becomes a lot more senior straight up, right? If you're in an agency role, you'd be meeting and greeting clients and pretty much like on the tools straight away. You're not just doing reference checks and things like that.
Right.
If you're in an internal HR position, you're not just scribing, an internal incident report. You're actually advising to your internal stakeholders on what to do next with their work. So I'm really keeping an eye on that space, and I don't know how it's actually going to unfold. I have a lot of people wanting to crack into recruitment. But in truth, I have a lot of HR tech startup solutions that are helping me with scheduling and all the other automation bits that I truly need help with.
Sure. You're absolutely right. This is one of the things why we actually founded WePloy. At the time, I was working in a big box agency, and a lot of our work, I joined recruitment because I wanted to go and recruit. I wanted to find, I wanted to give opportunities. I remember when I was a candidate, I was searching for jobs and just trying to get my career, finding my purpose. And the recruiters that I spoke to were just like, do you want this job? This is how much it's going to cost. This is where it is. Not much about where do you want to go, And I always saw
purpose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What is your career path? What is your purpose? And how does this fit into it? Those were never questions that were asked. It was all about what's your salary expectation?
Yeah.
What do you want to do? Those kind of things. So when I got into recruitment, I was really excited because I was like, great, I get to work with people and help shape their career in some way. And what I soon found out was that 80% of my role was literally just like stuff that could be outsourced. It was calling candidates, calling clients. And every day there were more candidates that I could never help, and there were more clients that I could never help. And for us, it was like, well, if we automate that process out through a piece of technology, we're not only able to then provide more value to these recruiters, but we're able to outsource something that is essentially needs to be outsourced, and we can disrupt something that has been uninterrupted or untouched for quite some time. And then help people unleash their talent and help them find their purpose. We have a motto here, which is work to live rather than living to work. But I mean, from your side, are you seeing or are you experiencing any of that right now within your work? I mean, you've got 2 businesses. Surely you have to be automating and outsourcing a lot of your stuff, right?
I'm automating the hell out of both businesses, and I'm loving it because it's doing all the hard work for you. And I think in this conversation today, learning about the future of work, how we're applying it in the now, and also talking about all the innovation and HR tech that's out there to help us actually drive towards our purpose and why we started the businesses that we did is just so cool. I actually can't wait to see what like the next year's got to bring, because things are moving at an exponential rate that if we sit down and have this same conversation in 12 months time, I bet it's going to be totally different.
Yeah. So I mean, I never actually asked you, what is, I mean, you've just started this new business. What was the purpose? Why did you start this new business?
I realised very quickly that startups who became funded had to scale up really fast. And so they weren't quite in the position to hire a head of talent. But I could come in a short 3 to 6 month accelerator type program and help them actually lay people foundations in a really great way without just scaling up super fast and then realizing they've got a culture problem. So I love it. I get the variety of working with several startup founders. Like every week I'm, working with different ones, and it's great to understand their purposes as well. So yeah.
Oh, very cool.
So in having this conversation today, it's really for me solidified some of my thinking around the future of work, understanding what HR tech is out there to help people like me in a head of talent role understand products and services that can better my world. But it also leaves me with a challenging thought around how we can continue to help the juniors in this world grow if we're taking out that layer of admin support with automation. What can we do moving forward?
And for me, the one highlight that I've really taken home today is that our job is still not done here. There is still so much more within this space that we can really do to unlock more talent, unlock more value within, whether it be you're a junior talent, head of talent, even just operational type managers. There's so much more to do. So I'm really excited to have, or thank you for your time today. It's been good to chat, have a laugh.
Having me along.
Tune in to next week's episode of the New School of Recruitment, where we'll explore another awesome topic.